Alright, so graphing -3 cosine x over 2 minus pi over 4. So I got a lot of things changing here. I have an amplitude change of 3 in the negative direction. I have a change to the period and a change to the horizontal translation, or there is a horizontal translation. So let's try to draw this one here. So I'm going to look at the period change first to kind of figure out how much I need to spread this thing out. So it's going to be 2 pi over a half, so that's going to be 4 pi. Okay, so basically I have a period of 4 pi, but I'm going to start from pi over 4. Okay, so I'm going to say there's pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, and 5 pi. Okay. So everything has to move to the right a pi over 4. So there's pi over 2 and there's pi over 4. Okay, so that's where I'm going to start from. And I'm going to go up 3 and down. Sorry, it's down 3. Okay. So where do I add? So if I'm going to do, if I start at 0, I'd end at pi over 4, but I have to add a pi over 4. Sorry, 4 pi. So let's see here. So that'd be 8. No, sorry. I get common denominators for 4 pi and pi over 4. So that's going to be 16 pi over 4 plus pi over 4. So that is 17. So my pi, that's 17 pi over 4. And the middle would have been this, but I'm going to add a pi over 4 right there, so that's 8. So that's 9 pi over 4 is where my middle is. So I start right there, the middle, which is going to be about right here, and then I'm going to end right there. There's my middle. Middle is going to be a little bit more than right there, down. Oh, sorry, I was doing sine for a second there. So I start there. Sorry, and I end there. There's my middle. Okay, so that's where I go. Middles are about there. So now I'm looking at something along, right there. Okay. So something that looks about like that. About like that. Okay. Let's try 134. So a lot of the same stuff here. So now I got f of x equals 4 minus 2 cosine 4x plus pi. Okay. So here is a vertical translation. Here's a horizontal translation. Period change, amplitude of -2. Okay. So get myself a graph going here. Okay, so I'm going to start with the period. You're going to get a feel for how I need to spread my axis out. So that's 2 pi over 4. So that's pi over 2. Okay, so it's basically 2 pi. Sorry, pi over 2 for a period. So it's a pretty short graph. And I got to move over a pi to the left. Okay, so I'm going to spread this one out a little bit more. So I'm going to say pi, negative pi over 2, positive pi over 2, and positive pi. Throw one more on there. Let's see. Okay. It's a negative cosine, so I'm going to go down 2. Okay. Now, the main thing I got to realize is I have this vertical translation of 4, so I'm actually going to have to mess with this axis a little bit more here. I'm going to run out of room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make all of these worth 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. So my vertical translation is 4, so I'm going to have kind of like a new x-axis. Kind of think of it that way. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's where I'm going to graph everything up here. Okay. I'm going to graph it on that line. Okay. So I'm going to start from pi over negative pi. So that's my horizontal translation to the left. This tells me I would go from 0 to pi over 2 if it was a parent function. So this is pi over 2. That's a distance of pi over 2. So I'm going to end right there. Okay, but I have to go up 2 and down 2 spaces. So it starts with the negative. So I'm actually going to start there, and I'm going to end there halfway. Go up 2. Okay. So now this is going to basically look like that. Right, so there's my graph. Let's see if we can kind of double check this. So I moved to the left pi. So instead of starting at 0, I started at negative pi. I had to go up 4 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be like the center line. Okay. My period got shrunk to pi over 2, so that's a distance of pi over 2. And that looks about right. Alright, looking at 141. Okay. So we're switching to tangent here. Okay. So remember, the main thing with tangent here, guys, is to make sure that you find the asymptote. So I take all of this whole value, and I set it equal to the asymptotes of the parent function, which are those two right there. Okay, pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. So to do this, I'd multiply by the reciprocal here. Okay. So this is going to be x equals the pi's cross off, and that's 2. That's a reciprocal, so x equals, that crosses off, that leaves you with negative 2, right? Just negative 2 and positive 2. So when I graph this thing, you know, I'm not going to worry about pi's and stuff. I'm just going to do 1s and 2s, right? So there's positive 2, there's a vertical asymptote. Negative 2, there's a vertical asymptote. This has a negative amplitude, so it goes down this way. There it is. Okay. 142. All right, 142 is f of x equals 4 tan pi x. So same thing, take that, set those equal to the asymptotes of the parent function. Oops, sorry, that's pi over 2. Okay. So in this case, I would divide by pi, which is the same thing as multiplying by pi, 1 over pi. Okay. So that I get x equals positive 1/2 and x equals negative 1/2. Okay. Alright, so if that's 1 and that's 2 and that's negative 1 and that's negative 2, there's my negative 1/2, there's my positive 1/2. Okay. Those are my vertical asymptotes right through there. Okay. And I have an amplitude of positive 4, and so this is kind of hard to show when you're kind of freehanding a graph like this, but that's going to make it steeper. Okay. So I really kind of want to make it look closer to a straight line. All right. So that's kind of what I want to show there. All right. And looking at 143, 1/4 tan x minus pi over 2. Okay, So same kind of thing. I got to realize the asymptotes, right? So I get x equals x minus pi over 2 equals pi over 2, and x minus pi over 2 equals negative pi over 2. So you can kind of think of it as shifting everything over pi over 2. Either way, it's going to work out the same. So it's going to be x equals 2 pi over 2, and x equals 0. Okay, so that's just going to be pi, right? A pi, half a pi plus half a pi is a pi. Okay. So now I'll go ahead and graph this one. And like I said, you can think of it like we just shifted over, right? So we usually here at negative pi over 2, we shift over a pi over 2. That puts me at 0. That's how I got this one. And I'm usually at pi over 2, and I've got to pi, so I just moved over to pi, right? So there's my vertical asymptote at 0, my vertical asymptote there. I have an amplitude of 1/4, so what that does is that kind of flattens it out a bit, you know, makes it less steep. And it would look about like